Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com.
From Tsunami Sushi in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christian Mader, editor and publisher of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Christian Mader. Frontiers aren't just about the Wild West or outer space. They're about discovery, whether it's navigating a bayou or reshaping an old industry. Some frontiers lead us into nature, others to the grocery store aisle. And for Janeene DeCluett, she seeks out frontiers for peace. She's the owner of Duke and Altum Kayaking, a kayaking adventure business with a spiritual twist. What started as a personal search for strength became a career spent helping others discover the beauty of the outdoors. And as a native of New Iberia, she grew up in a large family and has always had a love for nature. But she discovered kayaking in 2006 when she was caring for her mother, who was suffering from dementia. And so looking for a way to stay physically strong for the demanding role of caregiving, she and her husband took a guided kayaking trip through Pack and Paddle. And the experience was transformative, offering both peace and a sense of empowerment. And the couple gifted each other kayaks for that next Christmas, and Janeene found herself paddling regularly. What began as an informal group outings turned into a business when friends started offering to pay her for guided excursions, and encouraged by the demand, she made it official in 2008, naming her business Duke and Altum, Latin for Draw into the Deep. Today, she leads small group kayak tours throughout the region, averaging 3 trips each week. Janeene DeCluett, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
There might not seem like much left to explore in the rice business unless you're Michael Fruget. Michael is a second-generation rice farmer from Eunice, but he's not just growing any rice, he's growing Parish rice, a high-protein, low-glycemic variety of Louisiana's favorite grain. Michael graduated from LSU with a degree in agronomy with a minor in agricultural business, and rather than return to the family farm, he spent 14 years as a sales rep in the rice industry. And the job allowed him to travel extensively, learning from other farmers and gaining insight into the broader agricultural market. And when he returned to farming full-time, he set his sights on creating a branded rice product that can compete with larger national and international producers. So working with the LSU Ag Center, he selected a variety of rice known as Frontier rice for its increased protein content. And when dietitians tested the rice, they pointed out that it had another quality, a much lower glycemic index than traditional white rice. And he saw a unique marketing opportunity, and Parish Rice was born in 2019, and today is available in stores across Louisiana and Texas, with online sales reaching customers nationwide. Michael Fruget, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Christian.
So, Janeene, I think of kayaking as an adventurous sport, but you're bringing this sort of like meditative quality to it. So are your customers primarily sort of coming because they want sort of a sense of peace? Are they looking for an escape in that way? Are you turning adventurers into meditators? I mean, what's happening there?
Well, good question. I think that a lot of people come to me because they're visitors to the area. I'll have a lot of European clients that are coming in to experience the French in Acadiana. So they want to experience our waterways. Some of them want to experience why do we have a levee system? What is the purpose of that? So that's a different waterway. So I don't think predominantly people are coming out to get that added benefit of being drawn into the deep, and then that deep is, this is peaceful. I took a record producer one time out, high energy, and he came with his wife and his child, and I took him into the basin, and I didn't even do anything, didn't say anything. The first thing he said was, whoa, like, I need this in my life, you know? So, and there was an article written on him, 2 or 3 pages of the New York Times recently.
Oh, wow.
So I love that he came. really for his wife and children,
Yeah.
his child. Yet he immediately saw the benefit of it. Brought his blood pressure down.
So, I mean, if the story was in the Times, I'm sure you can share the name of this record. Who was it?
His name is Chad Chasm.
Chad Chasm.
Chad Chasm, and
Okay.
he's got a great vinyl record business.
Okay.
And the New York Times found out about him and said, "We need to know what you're doing and why you have this little tiny niche."
Okay, that's
that you're
really
doing
interesting.
well
So
with.
you hadn't heard of this guy before?
No.
No. You're
No.
not a vinyl aficionado or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, sure. So, Michael, Louisiana, well known for rice. My family's actually from Acadia Parish. Like, my dad's from Crowley, my mom's from Rain. Like, Crowley, rice capital of the world, right? Like, but we actually import a lot of rice to the United States. So, like, what's happening there? Like, why is that happening?
I wish I could give you a good answer as to why that's happening.
But-
It's something that we battle. We're basically importing into the United States the same amount of rice that we grow in the state of Louisiana.
Wow. How much is that? I mean, just ballpark. How much rice?
On an acre basis, we're around 400 to 450,000 acres a year in Louisiana.
Okay.
We're the third largest rice growing state in the United States.
Yep.
So it does affect our markets. Now, we are importing mostly Thai jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of people that like jasmine rice.
Sure.
We do grow jasmine in Louisiana.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to capture some of that domestic market. Our jasmine is not the same, but there is this stigma in certain areas that the only jasmine is Thai jasmine. That's just what people know.
Right.
And I think that's one of the flaws we have in our industry is we do not do a very good job of telling people what we grow here in the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like I would tend to think outside of some certain varieties like that, like basmati or jasmine rice, just in terms of like the size of it, right? Is it a long grain rice? Is it a medium grain rice? But you've kind of tried to put out a product that's got a specific sort of identity. I mean, talk to me a little bit about what frontier rice means.
So to go back in time, I think 25 years ago, rice was rice. You have to look at basically two rice growing regions in the United States. You have the Mid-South, which is where we're at, or you have California. So that's basically two different markets. We grow two completely different products. California does a really good job of marketing and telling people what they grow. We do not in the Mid-South. In 25 years, rice has changed way more in the Mid-South than it has in California. And we haven't illustrated that. We haven't talked about that. We haven't told the end user, the consumer, what we have now. People still think of it as rice is rice. But we're growing so many different products, if you will, now because we're growing so many different varieties in the Mid-South, and we're just throwing it all together. And I think there's opportunity out there to separate these things, just like I've done with Frontier, and market them to consumers, and it also helps the consumer understand what they're buying and what we have to offer.
So, I mean, Janeene, just to kind of pull you in here, I mean, when you first sort of decided, I was kind of struck by the fact that, you didn't necessarily set out to start a business around this, but people seemed to want to pay you to do it anyway. I mean, did you have to look to a different model and say, like, well, how would I develop an adventure business, a kayaking business around here, right? I mean, was that a thing you kind of had to invent for yourself, or did you have something that you could borrow from?
Well, I think it really came from the origin of, I was a caregiver, like you had shared,
Yep.
and I was drawn to the fact that when I got out in the water, I felt stronger when I left that event. And that was the first event I had gone to with Pack and Paddle with John and Becky Williams. And I came back and I just couldn't stop thinking about the idea. Mark and I have 6 children, and so that first initial thought of I like what I felt empowered, I felt stronger, that would help me in my caregiving. But it also had a rippling effect with the 6 children that Mark and I had. We had children that were, in the medical field. They were very, very dedicated to their work. They're busy. A few of them are doing that. A few of them are doing other things. But I knew that their lives would be much busier than Mark and I's life was raising a family. And I said, if we can have our children experience this to bring more peace and harmony into their life, their communities will be stronger. They will be stronger as parents to their children. So initially, it didn't start off as a business. It really started off as, I'm going to be a caregiver. I'm going to be a strong caregiver. Kayaking helps me to do that. Not only if I buy 1 or 2 boats, I can realize that my children can start using these boats as they progress in their family life. It's really how it started. So the boats were acquired for my family. I wanted to have enough boats where if anybody wanted to use a boat, they could come over and, hey, Mom, we're borrowing the tandem kayak today. And then a girlfriend from high school, Jessica, we were in the middle of a kayak experience, and she's in the back of my kayak, and she's like, why don't you open this up to friends? And she just connected with me in that way, and I'm telling her when we can go. By the time the trip ended, her phone is binging because she's throwing it to just friends, like, hey, Janene's taking a few friends out. And that's really how it started. I took a week later, she called me and she says, we have a lot of people that want to go. And so I woke my husband up and I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, I've got 8 people that are showing up today. What? I said, they're showing up. Some of them have their own kayaks, and we're all going to go kayak today. It'd be great if you could just come out and meet them, because they're coming in like 20 minutes, and it's 6 a.m. And so that's how it originally started. He came in from work that day, and he's carrying his briefcase. He's walking in, he sees people leaving, and he was a businessman. I was a homemaker. I took care of our children and my mom, and he just looked at me and just was, bouncing. He said, what happened? I said, well, I just made like some great money having fun. And he said, stop it. You need to get a business plan. You need to make sure you have liability insurance, and you need to really do your research before you do that again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so you maybe didn't set out to start a business, but at some point a business plan is a good way to turn something that's fun into to business.
Correct. Yes.
Michael, at what point? I was struck that you kind of knew you had a different sort of product on your hand. The protein value might speak to people who maybe looking for a more nutritious grain or something, but you sort of discover in that process, right, that there's this other benefit, right, that it's lower in the glycemic index of people maybe have blood sugar issues, right, that's a better fit. At what point did you kind of determine, okay, well, that's how I need to market this thing, as opposed to just, hey guys, you said earlier, forever rice was rice, right? Do people sort of discern it in that manner?
So I originally started just based on the higher protein.
Yeah.
When I started in 2019, I came up with my own brand. It actually wasn't Parish rice.
Yep.
We started with Prairie Acadian rice, and I was just going after the higher protein. I didn't know how much that would sell, but the main goal there was just to tell the story, and I mean the rice story, the agriculture story. I just wanted to have something to get me in the door to tell that story. Then when we found out the possibility that we would have a lower glycemic index value, I knew that was key. I've been around rice long enough to know that people leave eating rice because of what it does to your blood sugar, because of the high carbs. So I knew that was extremely important for us to find out what that value was. I'd never heard of the glycemic index in my life. So I had to do a little bit of research to kind of educate myself on what it was and what it meant. We had a very big challenge on getting it scored because we found all this out in 19, and then COVID hit in 20, and things were very difficult in 2020. And in order to do a glycemic score, you basically have to feed people rice and monitor blood sugar, and so they couldn't do that because of COVID. So we ended up, by the grace of God, finding a lab that was operating and willing to do it for us at the end of 2020. And I just had the hopes and dreams that it would come back 10 or 15 points lower than regular white rice. And lo and behold, white rice is typically around a 73 on the glycemic index, and ours came back a 41. So we knew we had something very, very unique. And I guess one of the hardest and also smartest things I ever did was went out and hired a marketing agency to help me market that and figure out how to bring it out to consumers.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Christian Mader. I'm talking with Michael Fruget, founder of Parish Rice, and Janeene DeCluet, owner of Duke and Altum Kayaking. I mean, Janeene, you've done all this by word of mouth. You don't have a marketing agent that I'm aware of. I mean, but your husband says, get a business plan together. Often a business plan says how much you're going to spend on marketing, how you're going to get your product in front of people. I mean, were you just sort of confident that people would come if you wanted them to, or was it more that, this wasn't really the point, and so it was okay with you if you maybe didn't blow up your bookings or something like that?
Yeah. I think it's important that we follow what our gut tells us to do, and sometimes we don't have a business plan on that, right? It's just like, I know this is good, and so I'm going to take that next step. And I think if we take the next step, the following step is going to get on our path as well. It's going to come on our path. But if we feel like I've got to have everything lined out before I start this, I'll never do it. I will never do it. So I think it starts out with, anyone out there who has a passion for something. You start with that passion, and if you believe in it, take that step. And for me, it was a step of taking those friends out, kayaking, and that was just a beautiful thing. But no, I did not have a business plan, and I followed my husband's idea, which was make sure you have liability insurance, make sure you have A, B, and C. And so, we're partners in a marriage, and so we're partners in really everything, and so I followed that bent of, I will do those things. And so I got my liability insurance. I reached out to John and Becky, asked them who they had. They shared their information. And I think that's another beautiful thing within our community. We have people in our community who are givers. And we have people in every community that are not givers, that just don't want to share their information. And so I say, surround yourself with people who are givers, and you're going to be that type of person as well. You're going to be a giver. So the business plan was, I had all these kayaks that were paid for, so I had no debt. I just had to have liability insurance to start it, and take classes on safety and Red Cross safety. And so I did that. That's how it really started. And our rice farmer shared about COVID. I mean, COVID is what was the next step for me. When COVID happened, people were not doing the things they normally did. They wanted to get outdoors with their family. They were cooped inside. So that season really, in my mind, launched me to the next step. Is I was taking people from all around the world out kayaking in our area. They were coming home to stay closer to family in some cases, and sometimes they were just so isolated with their family. They were looking for outdoor things to do, and that was a great second launch for me was COVID.
That's interesting. Michael, you said earlier that when you got into this, you had never heard of the glycemic index, and I mean, imagine there are people out there who may not have heard of it themselves. Can you talk us through exactly what that means?
So basically all foods are scored on the glycemic index, 0 to 100, and it tells you how it's going to affect your blood sugar. So it's very important to people with diabetes or pre-diabetic. 0 has zero effect on your blood sugar. 100 is going to have the most effect. So basically straight sugar. So because of the high carbs in rice and bread and pasta and things like that, it has a high effect on your blood sugar. So it's higher on the glycemic index. Like I said, typically white rice is around a 73 out of 100 on the glycemic index. Within the glycemic index, also there's a low, medium, and high category. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it's 0 to 55 is low, and then you have a medium and a high. So we were fortunate to come in as a 41, which also put us in the low category. So that's why, we have a low glycemic rice, because we fall in that low category.
Are y'all finding that people who are just buying rice because it's rice, I mean, does that change? Does it help their selection process? Or are you trying to market this specifically to people who are looking for a low glycemic option?
So number one, I'm a rice farmer.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. And number two, I want people to eat rice.
Yeah. Okay.
You talked about we import a lot of rice.
Yeah.
Well, the best way to combat that is to get people to eat U.S. grown rice and also increase domestic consumption.
Yeah.
So my goal is to target the people that have left rice and went to other products, quinoa or whatever it may be, cauliflower. I want those people to come back to eating rice. That's how we increase domestic consumption. If you have someone that's on the rice aisle every day buying rice, if they want my product, that's great, but they're already buying rice. So we want to bring the people back that left rice because of the effects on the blood sugar and what have you. And we see that. We see it in the grocery stores. We see it online sales, just comments through social media and different things. We are bringing people back to eating rice. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody that's severely diabetic could sit down and eat 5 pounds of rice a day. No,
Sure.
but
Doesn't
it
seem
does.
like a good idea for anybody.
Correct. So it does allow them to put some rice back into their diet, and ultimately, again, that's just increasing domestic consumption.
Yeah. Janeene, I have what I feel like might be a silly question, right? The boats, right? The kayaks. You're using specifically kayaks. Why kayaks and not a canoe or a pirogue or something? Like, especially like for people who are coming in from this area, like from out of state, right? They want to experience Louisiana, and maybe that might be a more traditional, watercraft. I mean, I don't actually do a lot of boating, and so just maybe talk me through why a kayak
Well,
as opposed
I need to take you kayaking.
I feel like I need it more today than any other day of my life. I will do it. But tell me. Yeah.
Well, again, it's what we were introduced to years ago, Mark and I. We actually were introduced to it too. Mark was thinking, what are we going to do when we hit retirement? What is something we can do when our children leave home? And so Becky and John introduced us to native kayaks. They were a great kayak that was top of the line kayak. So my kayaks are top of the line kayaks. They track real well. What does that mean? If we have a wind like we have in South Louisiana in the month of March and April, you're going to get out in a kayak. That kayak, if it's a hybrid kayak, a very well-made kayak, will track well in 15-mile-per-hour winds, 20-mile-per-hour winds, in which I kayak in. So the kayaks that I love are the ones I began in, which are sit-in kayaks. They're not sit-on-top kayaks. I don't own a sit-on-top kayak because they're not as stable. They're just not as stable. They're great kayaks for other purposes, but for the purpose of touring, which would be, going 35 miles in a kayak in a morning and a day, or 8 miles or 15 miles, and feeling like you've gotten a great workout, but you felt safe in your kayak, I would say you would get into a sit-in kayak. Now, not one with a skirt around you, not an oceanic kayak. I mean, we're in South Louisiana, so we've got flat water here. So what is the best kayak for just going out with my family? You want a kayak that is not going to be tippy. Typically, canoes are very tippy. You want to keep your shoulders in the boat. You're going to turn around and talk to somebody, keep your shoulders in the boat. If you lean out, you're out in Lake Martin, So typically, I'm going with hybrid, high-end kayaks that are that anyone can sit in. Someone who's 250 pounds can kayak in South Louisiana. You just have to be in the right kayak.
So is the main difference between a kayak and other types of paddle craft is just the shape?
No. The main difference would be, what are you looking to do when you get in the water? Are you looking to fish? Then you're going to be in a type of kayak that you can stand up in if you want. You're right. So it just depends on what you're looking to do. For what I'm looking to do, for what I'm looking to bring people out into the water to do, it's going to be people who maybe have never been out in the water and who are terrified, but they want to do something different. I want to get them in a very stable kayak, and I want to get them in a kayak that's going to track very well. I'm going to get them in a kayak that isn't heavy, and I'm also going to get them with a great paddle, carbon fiber paddle that is extremely lightweight. We've got some people who think, hey, I liked what I did. I'm going to go to this store and I'm going to buy a very inexpensive kayak, an inexpensive paddle, and I'm going to have that same experience I had with Janeene. You won't. You won't. You will paddle maybe a half a mile, and if you have a heavy paddle that you've spent $25 on, you're going to feel like kayaking is not for you. And it's just, you're not in the right equipment. That's all. So equipment matters.
Yeah, Michael, I would think that for a lot of people when they're shopping for varieties, right, fundamentally it's about what they're cooking, right? I mean, and so with the branding around sort of parish rice, I mean, is the thought process that somebody's more inclined to pick up a bag of parish rice, right, to serve it as, you know, for gumbo or something like that, as opposed to somebody who's making, say, Thai fried rice? I mean, do you have to kind of think about that in sort of the terms like the end use of the product, or is it still just people are like, man, I just want a high protein rice and I'll use it to make fried rice this week and jambalaya next week?
You know, it's part of the education process for us is to get the consumers to understand that our product might not work in X dish, you know. But again, telling the right story, we do have products out there that will work. We're sitting here at Tsunami's sushi rice.
Yep.
We don't grow sushi rice in Louisiana. It's something completely different. They want it sticky. Gumbos, boudin, you know, it's really important to our culture here in Louisiana. And that takes something different. We've tried parish rice in the boudin balls, and it just doesn't have the right, what we call cereal chemistry, to work for that. So there are products out there that will work for different dishes, but it's part of what I'm trying to accomplish is to educate the end user, whoever that may be, on what we have and what would work for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love what you said there. I mean, a lot of times good business is good storytelling, right? It's about the story you're trying to tell, and it helps people understand what you're doing. And Janeene and Michael, I appreciate you sharing your stories with me on Out to Lunch with Acadiana. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My guests on Out to Lunch Acadiana today have been Janeene DeCluet, owner of Duke and Altum Kayaking, and Michael Fruget, founder of Parish Rice. We edited this conversation to fit into our time slot here on KRVS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Janeene and Michael by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can subscribe on your podcast app and on our website, itsacadiana.com. And if you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from the show on itsacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Astor Morgan. You can find more of Astor's photos at astormorgan.com. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of I&O Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRBS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Boris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Chad Terrio. Our researcher is Leah Urdialis. And today's show was engineered by Dylan Babineau. Christian Mader, I'm editor of The Current, Lafayette's nonprofit newsroom. And to get the scoop on Lafayette, head over to thecurrentla.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. We'll see you next time for more business and conversation on Out to Lunch Acadiana. See you then.
Out to Lunch Acadiana was recorded live over lunch at Tsunami Sushi on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Tsunami is open Tuesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, serving sushi, sashimi, salads, and authentic Japanese grilled dishes. Tsunami welcomes casual dining or reservations. More information at servingsushi.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base, joneswalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.